Why does life feel so hard sometimes? Hi, this is Dr. Amina for another episode of Wise Wednesdays. And the reason is that life is life. There are ups and there are downs. But we also have to acknowledge that there are systemic things that can make things worse. So some people call it the colonial capitalist patriarchy. We live in a society that has a system of rules and hierarchies and practices that aren't very humane and can make things very difficult for most people, in fact, for everyone. And I really appreciated the Barbie movie, which I finally watched, for making some of these points in a very light-hearted Hollywoodian way. And here are some of the 6 points that I picked up during the movie that I thought were pretty profound, but done in a very accessible way. So, and the reason I'm sharing them, it's not that there are truths or that they're the ultimate answer to everything, or that if you understand this, everything is going to be solved. It's more that when we hear a point that names something that's difficult to articulate or that's quite complex, and we hear it named or we read it somewhere, it can create a sense of relief in our nervous system, because we feel less alone, we feel a sense of understanding, we feel that we're less crazy than we thought. So here are the six that I thought were interesting. So one, living in a patriarchal capitalist system is hard and it's tiring pretty much every day for most of us. And it's not something that's your fault, or that you're not doing something wrong. That feeling that you're always doing something wrong, that's not you necessarily. Obviously you might be doing something wrong, but this underlying existential kind of wrongness, that's not you. That's the patriarchy. Number two, both men and women lose out in the patriarchy. So I think the Barbie movie was also controversial. I don't read the news or anything, but I think I read something that said it was controversial because it's too anti-men and all this sort of stuff. But in the patriarchy, it's not gender specific. Yes, resources are organized around people who identify as men, but they lose out too. Why? Because it's stressful. It's stressful being in a competitive hierarchy where the winner takes all and everybody else is basically there to subdue and submit or to compete. Even if you're at the top, you might lose out. You're waiting there. You have to defend yourself, and you're waiting there for your spot to be taken at some point. So that is not that is not pleasant for even for the people at the top. Some of you might know that I, in my public health career, I specialized in inequalities and studied the Whitehall research for Professor Michael Marmot, and the evidence shows that everybody in a hierarchy has worse outcomes. Okay, the person at the top may relatively have the best outcome, but even they, in a system that's highly unequal, and this is the Wilkinson and Pickett book, The Spirit Level, even the people at the top in a society that's highly unequal will have worse outcomes because the outcomes are worse overall in that kind of society. So that's number two. Thank you, Barbie. Number three, the patriarchy, and this is, I think, comes towards the end of the movie, was invented to deal with the discomfort of being alive, with the uncertainty of being alive. Yes, it is uncertain. Life is uncertain. It can feel very fragile sometimes. There's a scholar called Mickey Cashton who believes that there was some kind of trauma. And I think she draws on anthropological studies and other sources that eons ago, over 10,000 years ago at least, when we think the patriarchy arose, there was some kind of trauma in nature, that we sort of lost trust in nature, that there were too many famines, or there were too many natural events that caused disasters or harmed humans, that we kind of lost trust in nature, and we started to want to protect ourselves and control nature. It's very interesting anthropologically if you look at how culture changes and religion changes and all sorts of organizational things happen in society, combined with technological changes of discovering the plow and starting to create agriculture and so on. But something happened that meant we started to control nature, and we started to favor accumulation and extraction and exploitation and things that probably didn't exist before. And that was to help us deal with this existential trauma of feeling that we were vulnerable in nature. And you could say that today we're still having to recover from that, because we're going to destroy nature and ultimately destroy ourselves if we continue with that belief. So patriarchy kind of creates the illusion of control by making us think that by controlling nature and people or groups of people, we'll be safe. But we know that's not true by looking at what's happening. Number 4, the patriarchy is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are. So again, within this paradigm of control, we think, oh, I'm the persecutor or the hero. I'm gonna sort of make things happen in a certain way against a certain enemy or villain. It's a persecutor kind of identity, and that would be the patriarch who claims authority and claims power in the name of creating safety for everyone. But it's not true. That is just not possible. And then the other 2 roles within that kind of classic constellation that you'll find in the Karpman drama triangle is the victim. So the victim of the authority or the power, and then the rescuer who comes in to save the day in that dynamic between the persecutor and the victim. And these roles can change, and they're fluid, but there's something in our mind that reproduces this triangle. There's something attacking, there's something being attacked, and there's something that's coming to change it and save it and make it better. But these are just made up schemas in our heads, made up identities. We are ultimately some kind of life force, and some kind of conscious life force. We are part of nature. We are part of this universe. We're made of the same stuff. And these identities can be useful, but they're not true. Thank you again, Barbie. And the final 2 points, I think this is the most important one, and it's at the end. It's kind of where the brainwashed Barbies kind of wake up again, because America Ferrera, who comes into Barbie Land, sorry for a spoiler, I'll try not to, but she names the cognitive dissonance of living in the patriarchy, which is this conflict between who you're socialized to be. So like, be a good girl who helps other people and does well at school and never says rude things. And who you really are, which might be someone who's pretty spontaneous and free and likes to make jokes. But essentially, you are a particular life form that's variable and that can change over seasons and time and depending on what's happening in the environment, rather than a particular role that has to stay fixed over time. And so cognitive dissonance comes from the fact that your mind can see that there's a conflict, or that there are 2 things, that you're trying to perform a particular role, but actually your feelings and thoughts underneath are very different to what you're socialized to do. And that can create a lot of anxiety. And finally, 6, naming this cognitive dissonance is the first step to liberation. Understanding that this is what's happening. You're not crazy, you're not doing it wrong, it's not your fault. It's just the environment you've been socialized into has created this experience. So seeing that will and can and hopefully will help many people to wake up and to remember who they truly are. This was a much longer video than I planned. I hope there was something useful. Let me know if you have other insights about the Barbie movie, or about patriarchy or patriarchal capitalism. And I hope that you find some ease in hearing something from today, or in just knowing that you're not alone in thinking things are difficult and hard. And I will see you soon.